That it is time for us to be getting started this morning. We have a few more coming in. The weather outside is not exactly conducive to being outside today. It's starting to rain. So we'll be looking at Song of Solomon again. Song of Solomon will be in chapter 4 again, down about verse 7 here in just a moment. Before we actually begin to walk through that and think about the Shulamites some more, let's go to God in prayer. Our God and Father in heaven, we are ever thankful for all that you have given us, for this day that we have, this time we can come and study from your word. Father, we're thankful for the rain that we are getting. We're thankful for the lives we're allowed to lead. Father, we ask your blessings upon our first responders and our military as they protect our country, that they are protected and returned home to their families. Father, we pray for those that are ill, that if it be your will, they'll be healed and return to health. We also pray for those caring for them, that they do the things that are needed and they are protected while doing so. Father, we pray for our leaders and our government, that as a nation we might look to you for guidance, do those things that are in accordance with your will. And Father, we also pray for us as Christians and as the church, that no matter what may happen in this world, we will continue to hold fast to your ways, look to you for guidance, and shine forth your light in this world. And we ask all these things in your Son's name. Amen. We have been looking and walking through the book Song of Solomon, looking at it from the Shulamite, as we've been studying women in the Bible, the Shulamite, the bride of Solomon here. In chapter 4, we see him in the first 5 verses, we see her being told by Solomon. So again, this is hard when you're trying to read the verses and keep straight who's trying to talk. But Solomon telling her that she is perfect. And in the end, he sums it up here at verse 7 to start with. You are all fair, my love, and there is no spot in you. She is in his eyes perfect, the very best. That's his conclusion. You think about that. Have there been other, as we've gone through these women, you think about have there been others that needed to hear that? What was it that Hannah had a problem with? Not the Hannah sitting here, but the Hannah in the Bible. Yeah, I had to take a moment at you. It's all fair. But Hannah, remember that Elkanah had 2 wives, Hannah and Peninnah, and the one created havoc in Hannah's life, and Elkanah kept giving her the reassurance that she was what he loved, that she was special to him, that she was the best. What is Solomon doing with the Shulamite? You are perfect. You are the best. In my eyes, you're the very best. You go back to chapter 1, you think about why that is. Remember, she had the thing, my skin is dark, my hands, I've been out working. She didn't think she was fair, yet Solomon is continuing to tell her here, even on the wedding night, you are the fairest, the very best. Verse 8, he goes on with this statement and says, come with me from Lebanon, my spouse, with me from Lebanon. Look from the top of Amana, look from the top of Senir and Hermon, from the lion's dens, and from the mountains of the leopards. And I forgot to put the map up. Jimmy, there should be a map of Israel right there, if you can just put it up. There we go. When you think about where he's talking about, evidently the honeymoon trip for Solomon and the Shulamite was up to a northern part of the kingdom. Here is Solomon's whole kingdom when we see it over here, stretching from what is the river of Egypt, not the Wadi El-Sari, not the Nile River, but what's called the river of Egypt. It's a wadi right here, all the way up to the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the area that Israel was supposed to have. Well, he takes his bride, it sounds like, on a trip right up into this area. I tried to enlarge it over here. Up near the city of Dan is Mount Hermon. And in the mountain, you have the heads of several rivers. When you go back into Syria, you have the Armana River. You think forward for a while, there's going to be a man named Naaman. What was Naaman's complaint when he was told to go dip in the Jordan River 7 times? Is not the river back in Syria much better? It was closer to the headwaters is what it is, because Hermon's also the head of the Jordan River. It flows off of Mount Hermon down into the Sea of Galilee and on down to the Dead Sea. So you have a number of rivers. It's also the highest point really in this whole region. Lebanon, Syria, Ammon, down into Israel. The tallest mountain, it's got snow caps on it nearly year round. Well, we're going to go up into the heights of this. It was known at that time for having lions that dwelt there. It also had leopards. The leopards, believe it or not, are still there. The lions have died away, but still have leopard attacks once in a while up in the very heights of the mountain. What is he telling her? You come with me. Who's going to protect her? How many of you on your own would go out wandering around even just the hills right here around the building at night? And why not? We could go through multiple reasons, but part of that is there's some wild animals out there, and what are wild animals known to do at night? When they encounter a human who they don't recognize, don't know what it is, and you're scared too. And this is what happens. He's telling her, you're going to be with me. Let's go to that area and we'll see the safety. I'm going to take you to what is a very beautiful area within Israel and within what was his territory at that time. Picking up at verse 9, let's notice verses 9 through 11. You have ravished my heart, my sister, my spouse. You have ravished my heart with one look of your eyes, with one link of your necklace. How fair is your love, my sister, my spouse. How much better than wine is your love, and the scent of your perfumes than all spices. Your lips, O my spouse, drip as the honeycomb. Honey and milk are under your tongue, and the fragrance of your garments is like the fragrance of Lebanon. Take a look at that for a moment. You have ravished my heart. What do you think Solomon is trying to say? He looks at her and what? He melts. That's what he's trying to say. All it takes is one little smile from her, and what is his day like? You remember, most of us have been married long enough in the room at the moment that we probably have gotten into that, what we call taking it for granted stage. But I want you to think, was there a time when all it took was a smile from your spouse to just make your whole day? If you got a text, well, most of us are old enough that we didn't have texting when we were back then. But if you got a call in the middle of the morning from your husband or wife, and it was for nothing other than to say, how's your day going? Did it make your whole day? You know, now if you bring, by the way, men, Valentine's Day is coming. It's a good time to bring them flowers, but be ready for the questions. What did you do or what do you want? That's what I always get when I bring flowers home. We've gone into that, haven't we? Was there a time when you bought flowers and she just loved it because you just what? You didn't have to state a reason. Men, she cooks your favorite meal. Does she need to state the reason why? What do you do if she cooks your favorite meal? Do you start looking and making sure you didn't miss your birthday or something? Yeah, that's what we do when we get into taking it for granted. Here, the Shulamite's not doing that yet. Neither is Solomon. He's telling her, just a smile. You ravished my heart. You ravished my heart. One look of your eyes, one link of your necklace. You go back into the first part of the chapter. Remember how he described her neck? Your neck is like the Tower of David back in verse 4, built for an armory on which hang 1,000 bucklers. Just the sight of her does what for him? Is that picture. Here's a good question, though. In and amongst all of this, where he's saying just a smile, just a look from your eyes, the link of your necklace, that's enough to just make my soul joyful, make me feel real good. He goes, my sister, my spouse. What do you think that refers to, and what does it mean, and why would you use those words? Any thoughts? What's he assuring her of by using those words? Anybody ever seen Cars? Gotta love Mater in Cars, right? The old tow truck. When they're at the trial and Sally comes in the first time, what is it Mater says that Sally does? She wants him for his body. What is Solomon saying when he says, my sister, my spouse? Is there a physical attraction to her from Solomon? Throughout the book already, we've seen that. There's no question. Why would he say my sister? What does he feel towards her beyond that physical attraction? That kind of love that you have for a sister. By the way, this also gives an indication that the Shulamite was most likely an Israelite, not a foreign, not the daughter of Pharaoh or somebody like that. She was an actual Israelite. My sister, don't we do that now? You know, how do we refer to someone else who's an American? Brother or sister? Why? Because they're of the same sort of lineage. And so we see part of that picture here. He's giving her reassurance that not only does he love her for her looks, which he finds very what? You know, you go just a little bit further into what we just read, you get to verse 11. Your lips, O my spouse, drip as honeycomb. Does he have a physical attraction to this woman? Yes, but it's not only physical, he also wants to take care of her from the other way, that of making her comfortable and being taken care of. And so we see that. Verses 12 through 14, notice how or go all the way through 15, notice how he brings about this. A garden enclosed is my sister, my spouse, a spring shut up, a fountain sealed. Your plants are an orchard of pomegranates with pleasant fruits, fragrant henna with spikenard and saffron, calamus and cinnamon with all trees of frankincense, myrrh and aloes with all the chief spices, a fountain of gardens, a well of living waters and streams from Lebanon. What is he giving her praise for here? What is it she has kept telling the daughters of Jerusalem throughout the process of this letter? Keep love until what? You keep it love until, or she says back even in chapter 2, at the end of chapter 2, or end of verse 7 of chapter 2, do not store up nor awaken love until it pleases. What was it she was trying to tell the daughters of Jerusalem at that point? Don't give away what's supposed to be for marriage. Unfortunately, what have a lot of people in the world and in our nation done and doing even today? Do they give that away well before it's supposed to be? And yes, and you see Solomon giving her praise for that. What does he say? A garden enclosed. We're not going to go into it, but you get the picture of what he's saying. You have kept yourself what? Closed up. She didn't give herself away. A spring shut up, a fountain sealed. You can see the picture he's using. And then he goes and says, your plants are as an orchard of pomegranates. What kind of physical attraction does that specify? He looks at her and sees what? What was a very precious and sweet fruit of that time, pomegranates. he goes on and think about some of these terms that he uses. Pleasant fruits, fragrant henna, spikenard, saffron, calamus, cinnamon, trees of frankincense, myrrh and aloes with all the chief spices, a fountain of gardens, a well of living waters and streams from Lebanon. What did he find her? What do you find it when you walk in the house and you smell your favorite meal or favorite dessert being baked in the oven? Anybody ever walked in the house, chocolate chip cookies, you smell them cooking, and what immediately happens? You know, the chocolate chip cookies come out of the oven, and unless someone is standing there slapping your hand because I have to have a certain number for this event or whatever, what are you attempting to do when that chocolate chip cookie comes out of the oven? You're willing to do what with your fingers? You're willing to let them get burned because it what? Smelled so good if chocolate chip cookies are yours. Hey, if steak is yours, what are you trying to do as soon as you smell it? What are you trying to do, whatever your favorite is? What is Solomon saying? He has that kind of attraction to this woman, and she has taken care of herself with the perfumes and spices that he's bringing that out and saying, that is there. Is it wrong to be attracted to the one who is your spouse? In fact, that'll be something we begin to discuss that happens in the next chapter. It's not wrong to be attracted to your spouse. What is wrong? Being attracted to someone else's spouse or someone who is not your spouse. That way they don't even have to be married. It's wrong to have that happen. Why does it happen? And how does the Shulamite, we're going to see her in the next chapter, time, the book of Song of Solomon is hard to keep track of time. We're on the wedding night here at the moment. She's going to close out with verse 16 of chapter 4. And in chapter 5, it's going to seem like time has passed. And we're going to see the Shulamite, this woman, has another problem that she sees within their relationship. Look at verse 16. She says, "Awake, O north wind, and come, O south. Blow upon my garden, that its spices may flow out. Let my beloved come to his garden and eat its pleasant fruits." What happened on the wedding night? They got together. That's the best way to say it. They became what many times people will say, consummating the marriage. They were man and wife. It's not a problem, and it's recognizable and given. Notice as chapter 5 now opens. Chapter 5, verse 1. Here is Solomon again speaking. He says, "I have come to my garden, my sister, my spouse. I have gathered my myrrh with my spice. I have eaten my honeycomb with my honey. I have drunk my wine with my milk." Now he starts talking to some of his friends. He says, "Eat, O friends, drink, yes, drink deeply, O beloved ones." So it sounds like, from the way when you take the whole chapter together, they've come back from the honeymoon. Life has begun to go on. He has now come in and is having some sort of, maybe not a whole feast, but at least a dinner with friends. He's eaten his fill. He's been with his wife. He's now having dinner with his friends. Notice now you go to the Shulamite. Where is she? She's in a separate spot and in her bedroom, evidently. At verse 2, she says, "I sleep, but my heart is awake. It is the voice of my beloved. He knocks, saying, 'Open for me, my sister, my love, my dove, my perfect one. For my head is covered with dew, my locks with the drops of the night.'" Here comes Solomon. We don't know how long. It doesn't give us that. But at some point in time, she's got, and with him having 60 wives and 80 concubines or something at this point, he's going to end up with 700 and 300, remember. Do you think he's in the same room sleeping every night? So She has her place. She's gone in. She's already closed the door, gotten into the bed. She is, as she says, asleep. Her mind is active, but she's asleep. And then all of a sudden, what does she hear? What's the only reason the king comes to your door after you've gone to bed? This is the point she's at. Verse 3, I have taken off my robe, and how can I put it on again? She's already gotten out of her lounging clothes, as it would be. She's in bed. I've washed my feet. How can I defile them? My beloved put his hand by the latch of the door. So he tries the door. It's locked. And my heart yearned for him. I arose to open for my beloved, and my hands dripped with myrrh, my fingers with liquid myrrh on the handles of the lock. I opened for my beloved, but my beloved had turned away and was gone. My heart leaped up when he spoke. I sought him, but I could not find him. I called him, but he gave me no answer. The watchmen who went about the city found me. They struck me. They wounded me. The keepers of the walls took away my veil away from me. What has happened? Life has gone on. She's found out being the wife of the king, even though she may be his truly loved, he's not always going to be what? There. But like most men, what does he do after you've gone to bed and to sleep? I'd like to come in and visit for a while. And we understand what Solomon wanted. She at first says, but I've already gotten in bed. I've already washed my feet. What do you want me to do? Then she changes her mind, gets up, but she goes to the door and he's already gone. Guess what's going to happen to us as life goes on in a marriage? Is there going to be a night when it can go either way, that one would like to have some time together and the other is already asleep? Or you hear those terrible words, not tonight, I have a headache, whatever it is. Did that happen with Solomon and the Shulamite? Right here. When it happens, you notice what she says, or she goes on to say, I charge you, O daughters of Jerusalem, if you find my beloved, that you tell him I am lovesick. Now, I don't think she's out running around the streets of Jerusalem. This is another one of those that appears conversations in her head, but recorded for us. If that is true, if Solomon had come to her door, knocks, she doesn't answer, he goes away, what is the warning that is given by the Shulamite? You others better what? Leave him alone, because he's whose? He's hers. Look at how the daughters answer, though, and think about this conversation. Again, this seems to be a conversation happening in her head, but you can see it applying to what is life. They look at her and they say, what is your beloved more than another beloved? O fairest among women, what is your beloved more than another beloved that you so charge us? How many people do you know that sort of describes in the world today? You didn't answer the door, and what are you doing charging us not to touch him? He's out here. What is your beloved more than any other? How dare you charge us? If we want to go after him, we ought to be able to what? Go after him. That seems to be where the daughters of Jerusalem are at that moment. How is it that we ought to view it? Do we see the picture of the Shulamite here? Is she feeling totally devoted to Solomon? We've seen it throughout. Solomon is feeling at the moment betrayed. She's going to feel very betrayed in a moment. Whose fault is this feeling of betrayal that she gets? There comes a good question. We can go to places in the New Testament and we sort of get part of the answer, but I think part of this is Solomon's fault. When did Solomon make the quote, quote, move? Did he contact her early in the day, about lunchtime and say, hey, I got to go to a business dinner, but as soon as I get home tonight, let's have dessert together. And then, something to give her some warning. Or does he go throughout all of his king stuff? It may have been a week or more before he's talked to her. And then all of a sudden, one night after she's already gone to bed, locked up and everything, what do you hear at the door? And again, when a man has, at the moment, somewhere in the range of 140 wives/concubines, what do you know it means when he comes knocking on your door, ladies? Do we see the reason why I think there is a problem, and it's caused by Solomon? The Shulamite, who has felt all of this love from him, all of a sudden is feeling what? I'm just another one of the women. I'm not anything special. The only reason he's knocking on my door, that's where she is at. Who caused that? Solomon did. Now, you can think about that for our own lives. We get into that taking for granted. What time do you expect dinner to be on the table, men? And how often does it happen? That's the picture. We start to take it for granted. You're just supposed to have dinner when I get in. By the way, hey, break out the old 50s magazine. Be waiting for me at the door with my slippers and my house coat, and, just make me comfortable when I come in. I don't care that you've had to wash 5 loads of clothes, that maybe your children are still young and they've been all around you and causing you problems. None of that matters. You should be taking care of. This is where Solomon and what he presents to the Shulamite at the moment doesn't say those words, but do we see that picture? That's where she's feeling treated. Notice how she goes on, picking up at verse 10. She says, my beloved is white and ruddy, chief among 10,000. His head is like the finest gold. His locks are wavy and black as raven. His eyes are like doves by the rivers of waters, washed with milk and fitly set. His cheeks are like a bed of spices, banks of scented herb. His lips are lilies, dripping with liquid myrrh. What immediately comes back to her mind about her beloved? It doesn't. Do you really think that he was white and ruddy? That he was chief among 10,000? Where do you hold your spouse? And using the Shulamite here, it can go either way. Men, where should our wives be? If you've got a pedestal, they ought to be on it. And other than God, they are the what? Center of your life. By the way, if your children take priority over your spouse, you're doing marriage wrong. Doesn't mean the children aren't important. Doesn't mean the children don't need to be taken care of. But who ought to be, for the man on that pedestal, the center of their life other than God? Her. Ladies, what does the Shulamite describe her husband as? Do you put your husband in this kind of thought, that he's white and ruddy, chief among 10,000, that his head is like fine gold, that his eyes are like doves, that his cheeks are like beds of spices, that his lips are lilies? In other words, who's to be the primary concentration of the woman? Not again that children aren't important, not that there aren't other things. That laundry still has to what? Be done. Men still have to do things. The yard still, well, fortunately not this month, but here soon, what are the yards going to have to be? And if you don't mow it this week, what's it like next week? It's got to be done. But still, who ought to be the center of your life? That spouse, the husband or the wife, depending on which side you're on. And so you see her giving this description of him. And think about that. The lovesick bride in verse 10 says he was white. His skin is what? Healthy and radiant. He was ruddy. Now, that word can be a little bit hard to understand because it can mean it has a reddish tint, or it can describe one who is short, strong, and stocky. Which one is it with her description? I don't know for sure. If she sees him as one that is white but has a reddish tint, she's known he's been what? Out in the sun. If she sees him as short, strong, and stocky, I don't know what his stature was, but that is a mark of what? A strength, something she can lean upon or hold to. And so you see this. You look down to verse 11, his head of gold. Think of that one for just a moment. Described as beautiful and valuable. Beauty came from his color, the value from his power. She knows who he is. And because of that, no matter what he looks like, and someone tell me this, have you ever seen the picture, and usually we do it more with women and to the man they're with than the other way around, but have you ever seen a picture of what looks like, at least in your eyes, is one of the most beautiful women in the world, and next to her is a man that you're going, how in the world did they even say hello? What does it tell you about that person? They don't look at the what? The outside. There's some importance to that. Here she's saying, hey, I love him, the person he is, so much that this is what he looks like to me. Now, in Solomon's case, did he fulfill most of these even physically? Well, absolutely. But at the same time, it's about what he looks like to me. You go on to verse 13. Or verse 12, the eyes of the doves, that description, Solomon had already attributed it to her. Here it is attributed to him. What is it that makes it the eyes of doves? Why would that be important? And Neely will not do this with me. I'll say, stare deep into my eyes. She will close her eyes and run away. She cannot stand that, but we get the picture. What is it that most women on one of those first few dates, when you really start to think the man is the man, you want him to what? When you communicate. You don't want him looking over there at the other side of the restaurant while you're sitting there and him talking to you. You want him what? The eyes of doves. You want him zeroed in on you. That's what she's saying. He's got that. When I talk to him, when he's with me, he is with me. Nothing else matters. And so we see it going on with the cheeks and the complexion, continued through verse 13. You pick up again at verse 14 and going down through the end of the chapter here, verse 16. Notice how she goes on about Solomon. She says, his hands are rods of gold set with beryl. His body is carved ivory inlaid with sapphires. His legs are pillars of marble set on bases of fine gold. His countenance is like Lebanon, excellent as the cedars. His mouth is most sweet. Yes, he is altogether lovely. This is my beloved, and this is my friend, O daughters of Jerusalem. Do we really think that Solomon had hands that were rods of gold? What is she describing? Again, it's about the value of the person she loves. Those hands and set with beryl. If you could be as described here, think about this. If your body literally had rods of gold in the hands, being set with beryl, that's a fine stone. Your body being carved of ivory and inlaid with sapphires, your legs that are pillars of marble set on bases of gold, so your feet, think about what she's saying there. What's usually the most indescribed and least thought about portion of your body, at least until you stub one of them? Those feet, right? What has she just said his feet are? Without saying his feet, but what's the base of your legs? The feet, they're fine gold. His countenance is like Lebanon. Today, we have a little trouble when we read that. What comes to your mind when you hear Lebanon today? You know, history has not been kind to Lebanon, especially in what we would call the modern times. 1980s, you have the battleship New Jersey offshore just pounding it with 16-inch guns, and Marines at the barracks that is blown up. And then a few years later, you have another fight, and a few years later, another fight. A couple of years ago, huge explosion in Lebanon. We look at Lebanon and we just see a war-torn, rubbished country. At the time Solomon is writing, the mountains were covered with cedar trees, and not small cedar trees, huge beams. In fact, when we think about Solomon, how did he construct the temple? It's mostly made out of stone, but where there was wood, it was cut from the mountains of Lebanon, that cedar tree. And in fact, the trees were so massive, you didn't cut them down and then just haul the lumber on carts across the top of the mountains down to where the temple would be. The only way they really had to move it was you take it straight down to the coast, you float it down to another harbor straight across from Jerusalem, you bring it in so it comes to the temple. Huge beams of cedar. This is Lebanon. Where does he take, remember back in chapter 4, where did he take her on the honeymoon? To the mountains of Hermon, to that area that would be covered in cedar trees, the beauty that would be ascribed to it. She's describing him the same way. How does she see Solomon in her eyes? No matter what else may have been true, this is how she saw him. How do you see your spouse? That's the real question. How did Solomon see her? Remember how he reassured her back in chapter 4? You are, chapter 4, verse 7, you are all fair, my love, and there is no spot in you. She was what? In his eyes, perfect. And in fact, he even went on with that, if you remember. What is he to her? And so that's how this picture of love is. And you see what happened because she's asleep one night. Solomon comes knocking on the door. And at first she says, oh, it's late. I'm in bed already. Just leave me alone. Then she thinks of it, opens the door, but he's gone. And what kind of longing does it create in her? Men, what is it, and the Shulamite's the example of it, what is it that women want, whether there's a verbal admission of it or not, more than anything else? Do they love it when you bring flowers? And again, Valentine's Day is coming. Do they love it when you bring, I have to keep reminding myself, do they love it when you bring flowers? Yes, even though you might get the question, what did you do or what do you want? They like it because it says something to them. Do they like it when you bring chocolates? If they happen to be a chocolate fan, whatever their candy or sweet is that time of the year, they like it. What do they like more? Be thought of. And how do they know you're thinking of them? Here comes the experiment. Somebody tell me what I'm thinking. I do have that thought. I got to remember it's Valentine's Day. What's the only way you're going to know what I'm thinking? No matter what you think, oh, I know what he's thinking about, right? No matter what you think, what is the only way you will know what I am thinking? If I verbalize it. If I don't verbalize it or take some action, what do you know about what I'm thinking? Nothing. You know, I've seen the meme, the guy and his wife laying in bed and she's going, oh, he's thinking about other girls. They go over there and he's got the thought window up going, I wonder if there is no tree, what do you hear in the forest? Some strange, absolutely no purpose thought. But what is she thinking he's thinking about? What's the only way she knows you're thinking about her? You want to scare your wife? Done it. It works. Pick a point this week at random, totally unknown to her, to just send 3 words in a text. Just send a text at some random point of the week. I love you. See what happens, men. But what's the only way she knows? Is when you what? You either have to say it or act upon it. And that's what the Shulamite is seeing here. She wakes up, I'm now missing Solomon. Here's what I didn't get out of bed and open the door in time, and here's what I'm missing. And so we see part of that picture. And by, again, I don't think she's having the literal conversation with the daughters of Jerusalem, but the one in her mind. What is she telling all the other women back there in verse 9 and then again at verse 16? At verse 9 verse 8, she's told them, you daughters of Jerusalem, if you find my beloved, you tell him I'm lovesick. You don't what? You don't touch him. He's mine. And you see them give her some argument. But look at verse 16. She closes it out with, yes, he is altogether lovely. This is my beloved. This is and probably the greatest mark of attraction and bigger. She's called him lovely, beloved. But what is the last phrase she uses? He is my friend. O daughters of Jerusalem. That's where it ought to be. Remember, how does he describe her back in chapter 4 and even in part of chapter 5? My sister, my spouse. What is it that the sister indicates? What would you do? Isaac, you're sitting there, I can ask you. What would you do for one of your sisters? I won't tell him you said it, by the way. I know what he would do if they were in danger. He would do whatever it took to what? Protect one of them. What's that telling the beloved, the Shulamite, when Solomon says, my sister? He's going to be her what? Her protector. My spouse, on the other hand, what is the spouse? Hey, those lips that drip with honey and the taste of milk and honey when we kiss and the descriptions of what she looks like, that's completely legal. But they need to hear also they're going to be what? Protected. And so we see all of that coming out. You go to chapter 6. Chapter 6 opens up now with some answerings. Reassurance. The daughters of Jerusalem speak first in verse 1, where they say, where has your beloved gone, O fairest among women? Where has your beloved turned aside that we may seek him with you? So, well, where has he gone then? If you're so concerned about him, and this is one of the Shulamite's great concerns. She's had a number of them as you go through the book. Her concern is now, I went to bed one night, and even though I'm feeling like I'm just one of the other women, because he's got 140 of us, and he's not with me every night, but he came knocking on my door, and I was slow to get to the door, and I really, really love this man. And now the daughters of Jerusalem in her conversation are saying, where is he then? If this is so special, where is he? We can go find him. And so you see the Shulamite in verses 2 and 3 here giving an answer to that. She says, my beloved has gone to his garden, to the beds of spices, to feed his flock in the garden and to gather lilies. I am my beloved, and my beloved is mine. He feeds his flock among the lilies. So you have to be careful with the terminology here. In the previous chapters, what has Solomon's terminology been using? Remember in chapter 4, he gave her that great praise at verses 12 through 15 when he said, a garden enclosed is my sister, my spouse, a spring shut up, a fountain sealed. Your plants are an orchard of pomegranates with pleasant fruits. you get a picture of what he's talking about. That's not what she's saying when she says he has gone down to his garden. So we have to be careful sometimes where the terminology goes, and we're just about out of time. So we'll take that as the start of chapter 6. We'll come back and pick up here at chapter 6 next week as we continue to look at the Shulamite and Solomon. Any other thoughts or questions this morning? If not, that's where we'll stop.